unravel the curious cases of skiers lured by the thrill of lofty peaks, only to disappear mysteriously. From a billionaire's alleged Russian conspiracies to a daring skier's body frozen decades later, a father's haunting vanishing act, and stories of a group's lethal underestimation of nature's wrath, these real-life thrillers expose the terrifying price of pursuing glory in treacherous peaks. Were they victims of foolish risks, foul play, or Mother Nature's fury? These are stories of 5 skiers who vanished without a trace. Under the looming shadow of Switzerland's iconic Matterhorn Peak, German-American billionaire Karl Erich Haub embraced a final fleeting moment of freedom. Clad in ski gear with just a small day pack, the 58-year-old retail tycoon and former Tengelmann Group CEO clicked into his skis and embarked on a solo ski mountaineering excursion into the crisp April 7, 2018 morning. Little did he know he was venturing toward a point of no return that would spark an international mystery captivating the world. Haub had been training for an upcoming ski mountaineering race when he was last spotted by fellow mountaineers boarding the first lift up the mountain alone that crisp April morning. Carrying only a small day pack and his skis, the experienced outdoorsman was a familiar sight to many taking on the challenging slopes around the legendary Matterhorn straddling the Swiss-Italian border. When Haub failed to return to his hotel in the posh ski resort village of Zermatt that evening as expected, his traveling companions quickly raised the alarm with local authorities. An extensive search and rescue operation was launched, but no sign of the missing billionaire despite employing helicopter crews, sniffer dogs, and hundreds of mountaineering experts scouring the treacherous peaks and valleys. After a week of fruitless searching, Haub's own family was forced to accept the grim reality that he likely perished due to some accident or misstep during his solo ski run. The daunting search was officially called off that October, leaving a cloud of unanswered questions and deep mourning in its wake. For the next 3 years, Haub was legally listed as a missing person, with his vast fortune and business holdings stuck in legal limbo. Then in May 2021, a court in Cologne, Germany officially declared the former retail mogul dead, based on the circumstances of his inexplicable vanishing act high in the Alps on April 7, 2018. But just 2 years after that pivotal court ruling, a bombshell report has surfaced that casts doubt on whether Haub perished on that fateful ski excursion after all. According to the German magazine Stern, the billionaire may have staged his disappearance and death to flee into hiding in Russia. The stunning allegations point to CCTV footage purportedly showing Haub, now 63 years old, being recorded on the streets of Moscow as recently as 2021. Investigators claim facial recognition technology confirms it is almost certainly the missing businessman, alive and well over 3 years after the world believed he had met his tragic demise on a Swiss mountaintop. But why would a fabulously wealthy man like Haub go to such duplicitous lengths to fake his own death? Stern's investigation points to his alleged ties with shadowy Russian figures, including a rumored romance with a woman suspected of being a Russian spy, dealings with a notorious Scarface oligarch and his criminal bank, and shady business investments inside Russia totaling over $40 million. Had Haub landed in hot water with ruthless forces inside Russia and the FSB intelligence service? Was his only escape route to disappear and start anew with a fresh identity? Or did the thrill-seeking adventurer perpetrate an elaborate hoax to shed his life of privilege for one of anonymity off the grid? Only Haub knows the truth. The revelations raise a staggering number of other questions as well. Where is the evidence that he died on that mountain, as authorities concluded? How could he authenticate his demise and inherit his own vast fortune if still alive? Did Russian intelligence operatives aid him in the ruse? And if Haub did pull off such an audacious stunt, where would he be now? And what would his endgame be? For Haub's friends, family, and business associates left behind to mourn his supposed death, the psychological and financial trauma of being deceived in such an unimaginable way would be immense if the allegations prove true. How does one go about prosecuting a billionaire who faked his own death? What would be his punishment for perpetrating such an extreme con? Or could the apparent facial recognition evidence and money trail instead point to something even more nefarious? That Haub was kidnapped against his will years ago and is being held captive by Russian operatives for reasons unknown? Perhaps the mountain nomad had encountered information or criminal enterprises he shouldn't have during his solo trekking. No matter how this incredible saga finally unwraps, one thing is clear. The mysterious case of Karl Erevan Haub's vanishing act atop Switzerland's legendary Matterhorn is far from a closed cold case. It may be just the first unbelievable chapter in a stranger-than-fiction global thriller that seems ripped straight from the big screen. The spring of 1954 should have marked Henri Lemaisin's 35th birthday in the mountains he so revered. Instead, the avid French skier's celebration among the soaring alpine peaks became a permanent reunion with his beloved range that year. Lemaisin inexplicably vanished during a ski holiday near the Swiss-Italian border, leaving his family to spend over half a century tormented by his unexplained disappearance. For 64 long years, Lemaisin's final resting place remained one of the Alps' most jealously guarded secrets. That is, until an astonishing 2005 discovery in 21st century technology combined to unearth the truth frozen high among the glacial crevasses and ice fields. It was in that fateful year when Italian authorities chanced upon a grisly scene at nearly 10,000 feet in the Aosta Valley. Scattered ski equipment, a buried mass of clothing, and human bones. Among the eerie artifacts were a shattered pair of glasses and a watch, both monogrammed with cryptic initials that may as well have been a fingerprint from beyond the grave. Investigators quickly deduced that the unknown skier was likely a man around 30 years old at the time of his death in the early 1950s, sometime in the spring when the mountain conditions were warm enough for him to have shed his jacket. His high-quality ski gear and monogrammed accessories suggested he hailed from wealth. The mysterious alpine nomad appeared to have died surrounded by his greatest joys, solitude among the peaks and pursuit of the sport he loved. But who was this unlucky adventurer? And how did he meet his untimely demise in such a remote, unforgiving terrain? Investigators were stumped, exhausting every possible avenue to identify the remains over the next 18 years. That's when they took their cold case conundrum straight to the public, harnessing the power of social media to spread awareness across the Alpine region in hopes someone might recognize a forgotten hero's personal effects. Incredibly, the unusual strategy worked, and in early 2023 authorities received the break they'd been seeking. A French woman had heard the curious tale on the radio about the mysterious skier's remains, and something immediately clicked. Her uncle Henri Lemaisin had gone missing without a trace in that very area in the spring of 1954. Further details from Emma Nassim helped corroborate the lingering puzzle pieces, like the shattered spectacles on the body that matched Lemaisin's exact frames from old photographs. The striking facial comparison authorities made using DNA from Nassim's 95-year-old father confirmed that the remains were indeed their long-lost relative. According to Nassim, her thrill-seeking uncle embraced an adventurer's life from an early age. Though born into wealth, Henri Lemaisin found his greatest fortunes in the rugged Alps, where he frequently vacationed and reveled in the surrounding isolation. Sadly, Lemaisin's usual caution was no protection from whatever ill-fated incident took his life on that fateful spring ski outing nearly 7 decades ago. Perhaps it was a wrong turn into a crevasse or avalanche caught him off guard during a whiteout blizzard. Or maybe he was incapacitated by a freak accident or sudden medical emergency with no one around for miles to lend aid. We may never know exactly how he spent his final terrifying moments alone among the very peaks he revered most. While Lemaisin's untimely end remains shrouded in mystery, his incredible rediscovery has finally brought his anguished family the answers and peace they've craved for over 64 agonizing years. But the accidental time capsule from 1954 also raises harrowing questions. How many other missing alpinists are permanently entombed in those jagged rock cathedrals, lost forever to the elements? Could any of their silent stories still be uncovered with additional viral awareness, as in Lemaisin's case? No matter the deeper meanings, at least one family can move forward freed from the harrowing clutches of a lifelong mystery. The agonizing question of what became of Henri Lemaisin's need no longer haunts them, thanks to a completely unexpected source that finally disinterred the Alpine's long-buried secret. For over 3 decades, the case of Gregory Barnes's mysterious disappearance in the Italian and Swiss Alps had remained a maddening, unsolved riddle. The 24-year-old avid outdoorsman from Toronto vanished without a trace during a skiing excursion in 1980, leaving his loved ones in agonizing limbo. That is until a freak of nature finally revealed the young man's tragic fate, entombed in a glacial crevasse in September 2015. According to his sister Sonia, the shocking revelation came as an unexpected phone call from Italian authorities. After 35 agonizingly long years with nobody or evidence to provide a shred of closure about her brother's baffling disappearance, the news she had hung so tenuously onto hope for had finally arrived. Sonia reflected on the overwhelming emotion she experienced when she received the news of Gregory's discovery in the Alpine region he held dear. The shock of the revelation left her reeling, unable to comprehend the reality of the situation. Never could she have imagined such a heartbreaking turn of events occurring within her lifetime. The break in the cold case resulted from an unusually sweltering European summer in 2015. Record temperatures fueled increased glacial melt across the mountain range straddling the Italian-Swiss border, including the picturesque Bernina peaks. There, amid the thawing ice fields, the tragic truth about Gregory's fateful final ski run was finally stripped bare over 3 decades later. In September 2015, a team surveying the area's receding glacial landscapes came across a grisly scene no one could have anticipated. Human remains frozen inside a deep crevasse along with tattered shreds of clothing and ski gear. Among the eerie artifacts was an unmistakable clue to the unknown victim's identity: an intact Canadian passport named Gregory Barnes. The baffling cold case that had traumatized Sonia and her family for over half their lives suddenly had a resolution. The revelations offered by the remains and personal effects helped corroborate accounts of Gregory's fateful final run on that skiing trip 35 years earlier. The passionate outdoorsman from Toronto had been part of a group adventure to summit the spectacular Bernina peaks when disaster struck. Gregory had taken a short detour alone to repair a malfunctioning ski binding back at the party's hut, then attempted to catch up by taking what turned out to be a fatally wrong turn on the treacherously vast glaciers. Despite extensive search efforts by Italian and Swiss crews at the time, no sign of the missing 24-year-old ever emerged from beneath the alpine ice cap's frigid grip. That is, until this summer's escalated melt miraculously disinterred the heartbreaking secrets of what had become of the daring young adventurer so many lifetimes ago. While the shocking discovery has helped unravel the mystery of Gregory's unexplained disappearance, it also shines a harsh light on the harsh realities of alpine exploration. For Sonia and her family, the agonizing unknown of Gregory's disappearance has finally been erased. Still, that emotional closure comes at the cost of learning just how frighteningly alone he spent his tragic final moments. Even with the circumstances around Gregory's passing somewhat unraveling, many other terrifying questions still linger. What lived through his mind as he lay injured and frozen in that crevasse so far from any hope of rescue? Did he suffer, or did the extreme conditions render him unconscious quickly? And most haunting of all, could any part of this nightmare have been avoided? While such waking night terrors may never be resolved, at least the Barnes family can finally have a resolution about their wandering loved one's ultimate fate. Thanks to the heat wave exposing an alpine time capsule, they can adequately grieve Gregory and lay his remains to permanent rest over 3 decades after that fateful ski adventure. It was supposed to be an idyllic family ski getaway in the stunning Japanese Alps. But when 33-year-old American Matthew Healy didn't return from his final run on the slopes of Nagano's Hakuba Happo 1 resort in February 2017, a frantic multi-day search and rescue operation was set in motion. As days stretched into a week with no sign of the missing skier, a dreadful scenario loomed. Had Healy fallen victim to the very alpine dangers he traveled across the world to take on? A father of 2 and military veteran from Okinawa, Japan, Healy embraced the adventurer's spirit that had him constantly pushing the boundaries of the island paradise he called home. When the opportunity arose for a ski trip with his wife and kids to the famous powdery runs of Hakuba, the thrill-seeker leaped at the chance to carve up fresh tracks in the iconic Japanese mountain range. But at some point after separating from his group that fateful February afternoon, something went awry during Healy's solo run. Despite an immediate missing person response from the resort ski patrol and sweeping avalanche debris zones with probe lines, not a single glove or ski pole surfaced to indicate his whereabouts. By the next morning, an ominous lead, Healy's mobile phone signal had abruptly stopped pinging from a secluded alpine valley popular with off-piste skiers and snowboarders. As search crews zeroed in on the area north of the resort, troubling details about the remote terrain's dangers began to shed light on the increasingly grave situation. According to James Robb, a longtime local backcountry guide in his lifetime, there have been 5 or 6 people caught up in avalanches there. 3 New Zealanders died in a nearby valley in similar terrain in 2000. Masanori Mori of the Hakuba Mountain Guide Association echoed the risks, stating that backcountry skiing has risks of avalanches, getting lost, crashing into trees, and falling into holes. As American volunteers from Yokota Air Base and famed avalanche rescue dog teams joined the urgent operation, a massive debris field beneath a treacherous ridge quickly became the focal point. The steep slope was infamous among locals as highly avalanche-prone, with enough force to easily bury any unlucky victim. For a week, crews scoured the desolate alpine valley, probing deep into walls of fractured avalanche debris across an area larger than a football field. But despite their feverish efforts, by late afternoon on February 22nd, a hollowing silence echoed across the mountains where so many feared the worst had befallen Healy. Lieutenant General Jerry Martinez, commander of U.S. forces in Japan, delivered a somber statement acknowledging the challenging situation confronting the search teams. He paid tribute to Matthew with a heavy heart, recognizing him as a devoted husband, father, and esteemed member of the U.S. Navy medical community and the Army Reserves. Despite the ongoing efforts, Martinez's words carried a sense of resignation, tempered only by the lingering hope that persisted amidst the sorrow. But as search operations were finally called off in the wake of the unforgiving alpine silence, Matthew Healy's loved ones were left tormented by the unanswered questions. Where had he ventured, and what happened after he went off course that fateful day? Did he survive the week exposed to the elements, waiting in vain to be rescued? Or did the mountains swiftly claim another victim in one brutal avalanche or high-marking fall? While the prospects for resolving this latest alpine mystery seem grim, cases like Healy's raise awareness for an entirely preventable yet recurring tragedy. Was there a missed opportunity for closer coordination between resorts and backcountry operations? Only Hakuba's vast frozen peaks may hold the true answers about Matthew Healy's vanishing act somewhere within their icy depths. But the harrowing story should also prompt serious self-reflection in the global alpine community about preventing the following horrific incident before it's too late. The Swiss Alps have beckoned adventurers and thrill-seekers for centuries, with their jutting peaks, pristine glaciers, and crisp mountain air. For Emily Deschanel, a 28-year-old passionate skier and outdoor enthusiast, the magnetic pull of these fabled slopes proved impossible to resist, until nature turned menacingly inhospitable. Emily should have been celebrating her 29th birthday this week. Instead, her family is mourning her disappearance on a treacherous ski trip that claimed the lives of 5 others, including her boyfriend David. It was supposed to be an adventure in the beautiful Swiss Alps, a group of 6 avid skiers trekking from Zermatt to the village of Arola, near the famous Matterhorn Peak. Emily loved sharing her alpine exploits on social media and was thrilled to join David and his relatives on the journey. But Mother Nature had other plans. As the group approached the 400-foot-high Tête Blanche mountain on Saturday afternoon, a brutal storm engulfed them. Blinding snow, howling winds over 70 miles per hour, and bone-chilling temperatures below minus 20 degrees Celsius. By 5 p.m. on March 10, 2024, one of the skiers managed to send a distress call before the brutal conditions overpowered them. When rescuers finally reached the area on Sunday night, they found 5 frozen bodies scattered across the mountain face: David, his 2 brothers, their cousin, and an uncle. Emily's backpack and skis lay ominously beside them, but despite extensive searches, there was no sign of the young law graduate from Fribourg. Anjan Truffer, the lead rescuer, shared the initial optimism that pervaded the search efforts. Reflecting on the belief in the possibility of miracles, he recounted previous instances where missing individuals had been found alive after several days. However, as the relentless search persisted for a week, hope began to wane. Despite their best efforts scouring the unforgiving terrain, authorities faced the grim reality that Emily might not be found alive. The decision to call off the search left devastated family members grappling with the painful acceptance that their loved one may never be recovered. So what happened to the promising 28-year-old who worked for the local water company? Did she simply wander away from the group, quickly succumbing to the deadly conditions? Or did a horrific fall, perhaps into one of the many crevasses that riddled the area, abruptly end her life that fateful day? Truffer acknowledged the treacherous nature of the terrain, conceding the possibility that Emily might have fallen into one of the numerous crevices scattered throughout the area. However, he stressed that such conjecture remained speculative at best. Despite authorities closing the case, Emily's loved ones grappled with a multitude of unanswered questions. How could someone as experienced in outdoor adventures as Emily, accompanied by 5 other proficient skiers, find themselves so tragically ill-equipped for the ferocious storm that descended upon them? Why had they chosen to traverse such demanding terrain dressed only in light clothing, a decision that seemed to defy common sense? Local mountain guides expressed disbelief and dismay at the situation, with one describing the ominous sight of the approaching storm as a wall of clouds. Their astonishment stemmed from the group's willingness to ski in hazardous conditions. Another guide went further, labeling their decision as negligent, highlighting the recklessness of their actions in the face of obvious danger. Officially, Emily Deschanel remains unfortunately untraceable, according to police. Her body still trapped somewhere in the cruel embrace of the Swiss peaks she adored. But her bright spirit echoes through the mountainsides in the memories of her shattered family and friends. Will her final resting place ever be discovered, allowing her anguished loved ones to lay her to rest properly? Or will the daredevil skier's last moments forever be shrouded in mystery, consumed by the mighty Alps exemplifying beauty and brutality? Only the mountains know for sure.